hadn't planned on staying the night. The funeral was simple, exactly as he would have wanted. No speeches. No hymns. Just my mother's voice breaking as she recited Psalm 23 in a whisper and the low, dull thud of earth landing on wood. By noon, the family was gone. Folded into black cars, disappearing down the road in silence. I stayed behind. Not because anyone asked me to. Because I couldn't leave him. The house stood at the end of a dirt lane framed by leaning trees, its chimney long dead, paint peeling in soft ribbons like sunburnt skin. It wasn't haunted, not in the traditional sense, no town rumors, no tragic deaths. But it always felt aware. He built it himself, back in the 60s. My mother told me he never trusted anything he hadn't hammered with his own hands. The porch still creaked where it always had. And when I stepped inside, the scent hit me. Not decay. Not dust. Just him. Menthol soap. Dried pine. Old leather and newspaper ink. A warmth that clung to the walls like it hadn't yet realized he was gone. The furniture was exactly where it should be. His recliner with the threadbare arms. That brass floor lamp with the crooked neck. Even the tin dish by the door, still holding his loose change, 3 quarters, 2 pennies, and a bent paper clip. No one had touched it. Not since the night the ambulance took him away. I wandered the room slowly, like I was afraid I'd wake the house up. My fingers traced the walls, brushing over the faint notches he used to measure my height. My name carved beside each one in his heavy, crooked letters. Tom at 6, Tom at 9, Tom at 13. He never repainted over them. He told me, a wall that forgets is just drywall. I slept in the guest room. The mattress was stiff and cold, but I didn't mind. The blanket smelled like cedar and faint tobacco. The kind of scent that makes you feel like someone just left the room. There was no TV. No reception. Just the slow tick of an old mantel clock somewhere in the house, and the wind moving through the chimney with a voice of its own. I lay there in the dark, listening. The silence wasn't empty. It was watchful. I must have drifted off sometime after 10. When I woke, the air had turned cold. The kind of cold that feels like it's coming from inside the walls. I reached for the lamp, blinking sleep from my eyes. And then I heard it. 3 knocks. Slow. Evenly spaced. Not from the front door. Not from the wall. From the door of the room I was in. My breath caught in my throat. And then... Tom. A whisper. Low. Familiar. Too familiar. But it wasn't his voice. Not really. It sounded like someone trying to sound like him. I didn't move at first. I lay there in the dark, staring at the outline of the door, feeling the echo of the knock still pressed into the walls. 3 knocks. Then my name. Tom. I knew that voice. I'd heard it 100 times before, telling me to bring in firewood, reminding me how to bait a hook, murmuring bedtime stories that always ended with, "But don't tell your mother I scared you." But this wasn't that voice. It was wrong, and not in the obvious way. Not ghostly. Not distorted. Just off. Like hearing your name spoken by a voice actor doing their best impression of someone you love. I sat up and pulled the blanket tighter around me. The air was colder than it should have been. I could see my breath. There was no heating vent in the guest room, just the ancient furnace that rattled under the floor when it bothered to kick in. But this chill, it wasn't from neglect. It felt personal. Like someone had opened a door that shouldn't have been opened. I whispered, "Grandpa?" No answer. Just the faint creak of floorboards beyond the door. Soft. Slow. As if someone was walking barefoot down the hallway. I stood and crossed the room, pressing my ear to the door. Nothing. Then, Just as I exhaled, there it was again. Tom. This time it wasn't coming from the hallway. It came from the other side of the room. From the wall behind the bed. I turned slowly. That wall had once been shared with Grandpa's bedroom. The room he died in. I walked to it and placed my palm flat against the paint. Cold. So cold it felt like my skin might stick. I waited. And then, just below my hand. 3 knocks. Muffled. Measured. Answering. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. I backed away. My mind started doing cartwheels trying to rationalize. Pipes? Settling wood? Echoes? But no. It wasn't random. It was a response. I opened the door and stepped into the hallway. Everything was just as it had been earlier. Still. Dim, too quiet. But the air felt held. Like the entire house was waiting to see what I'd do next. I turned left. Toward his room. The door was cracked. Just a finger width. Enough to see the edge of the dresser, the corner of the quilt, the tip of his old slippers still tucked neatly under the bed. I pushed it open. The light was off, but moonlight spilled in through the gauzy curtain. Nothing was out of place. Except the photo. On the nightstand. It hadn't been there before. A framed picture in a wooden border. Me, age 5, sitting cross-legged on the living room carpet with a toy boat in my hands. Grandpa kneeling behind me, one hand resting gently on my shoulder. But I didn't remember the toy. Or that shirt. Or the thing in the background. Barely visible, standing just behind the curtain. Faint. Tall. Blurred. I leaned in, squinting. That's when the lamp beside the bed turned on by itself. Click. Warm light. Buzzing filament. I froze. And in the reflection of the photo's glass, I saw it. A shape behind me. Not close. Not detailed. Just tall. Waiting. I turned. No one there. But on the bed, the quilt was disturbed. Pressed inward, like someone had just stood up. And from the far corner of the room. A whisper, dry and close. You said you'd stay longer this time. I closed the door behind me without meaning to. It just happened. 1 second I was staring into that bedroom, his bedroom, and the next, my hand was on the knob, turning it gently until the latch clicked shut. It felt like instinct. Like survival. Like the house was teaching me how to respect something it no longer knew how to name. Back in the hallway, everything looked the same, but I felt different. Like I'd walked through something invisible and come out on the other side wearing clothes that didn't quite fit. The floor creaked under my feet even when I stood still. The walls seemed to lean in just slightly. Not enough to notice, unless you were trying not to. I returned to the guest room. I left the lamp on. And I didn't sleep. Not really. I lay in bed with the blanket up to my chin, staring at the ceiling where water stains shaped like clouds had slowly become faces. I told myself they'd always been there. That I just hadn't paid attention before. Somewhere around 4 a.m., the furnace groaned. The pipes clicked. The walls expanded. Normal sounds. Old house sounds. But beneath it all, fainter than breath, came something else. A low shuffling. A dragging. Like socked feet sliding gently across the floor. And a slow rhythm beneath it. Thump. Thump. Like a cane. Or a heel striking the floor too hard. I sat up, heart hammering. The hallway was dark. The door was still closed. But light flickered at the bottom. Warm. Flickering. As if someone had lit the fireplace. But the fireplace hadn't worked in years. I stood. Walked to the door. Laid my hand on it. Didn't open it. Not yet. Just listened. No movement now. Only breathing. Not mine. Low. Rhythmic. And very close. I opened the door slowly. And there he was. Sitting in the recliner. Backlit by the soft orange flicker of a fire that shouldn't have been burning. He was facing the radio. Hands folded. Head tilted slightly like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. The same brown sweater. The same pressed slacks. The same old slippers I hadn't touched since the wake. But I couldn't see his face. The shadows didn't let me. I took a step forward. The floor groaned beneath me. He didn't move. Didn't turn. But I heard it. From his chair. From his mouth. You closed the door. 3 words. No accusation. Just disappointment. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. And then he stood. Slowly. Deliberately. And walked toward the hallway without ever lifting his feet. I stepped back into the guest room and shut the door as softly as I could. This time, I locked it. And sat on the floor with my back against the wood until morning. I didn't leave the house the next morning. I told myself I should, get in the car, head back to the city, shake this thing off like a bad dream caught in the folds of grief. But I didn't. I made coffee. The old-fashioned way, with the tin pot and the cracked filter that always made the coffee taste like the cabinet it came from. Just the way he used to drink it. I sat at the kitchen table. And waited. I didn't know for what. But the house did. Sunlight crawled across the floor like it wasn't supposed to be there. It reached into the hallway first, touched the edge of the rug he always tripped over, then crept slowly toward the baseboards like it was testing something. By noon, it had reached the bedroom door. His door. And then it stopped. Like it knew better than to go in. I stood. Walked to the end of the hall. The door was shut. I hadn't touched it since last night. But now, something was different. The air around it felt heavier, like the pressure in your ears before a storm breaks. I turned the knob. It wasn't locked. The room looked the same. Quilt folded. Curtain still. Lamp off. But on the bed, placed perfectly at the center of the pillow, was an object. Small. Black. Metallic. I stepped closer. It was his keyring. Old brass loop, worn thin at the edges. A few familiar keys, the back shed, the truck he hadn't driven in years. And one I didn't recognize. Smaller than the rest. Shiny. Untouched. New. Attached to the ring by a piece of red string. No label. No tag. I sat on the edge of the bed and held the keys in my hand. They were warm. Too warm. Like they'd just come out of someone's pocket. I closed my fingers around them, and that's when the clock above the dresser ticked once. Just once. Loud. Clear. But the hands hadn't moved. And I saw something in the mirror. Not a shape. Not a shadow. A light. Brief. Flickering behind me. Under the floor. There was a cellar beneath the house. Small. Dirt-walled. Mostly storage. I hadn't been down there in years. Last I remembered, it was full of firewood, old jam jars, and the smell of damp stone. But the new key felt like it belonged there. I didn't want to go. But my feet moved anyway. The door to the cellar was in the back hallway. Hidden behind a curtain that hadn't moved in a decade. The key turned easily. The lock clicked. And the door creaked open like it had been waiting for the weight of my hand. The stairs were steep. Narrow. Every board groaned in protest as I descended. At the bottom, darkness. Cool. Still. And then, a whisper. From behind me. It's still there. I turned on the bare bulb hanging from the ceiling. The cellar was empty. No shelves. No jars. Just packed dirt and old brick. Except, in the corner, something buried. A box. Partially uncovered, as if someone had started digging it out, then stopped halfway. I knelt. The dirt was soft. Almost fresh. I brushed it aside with my hands. The box was wooden. Heavy. I pried it open. Inside. Not gold, not documents, not anything that made sense. Just a stack of old cassette tapes. No labels. And on top of them, a folded note. In his handwriting. Don't listen unless you remember. I brought the box upstairs like it might fall apart in my hands. It was heavier than it looked. Not just weight, memory. I laid it on the kitchen table, still faintly warm from the sun through the window. The tapes inside had no markings. No years, no titles. Just dull plastic and magnetic film. There were 7 of them. All the same length. All slightly dusty, except the top one. It was clean. Like it had already been touched. Like someone had taken it out, then put it back. The only working player was in the den. An old black portable with a cracked handle, the kind with a squeaky play button and a hum baked into the recording head. I hadn't touched it since I was 12. I popped in the first tape and pressed play. A second of silence. Then static. Then, his voice. Testing, this thing still works? Okay. If you're hearing this, Tom, it means I'm gone. And you stayed. My breath caught. He cleared his throat in that dry, habitual way he always had before saying something important. There's something I need to tell you. About the house. About what happened here. What I did. What I thought I buried. God help me, I thought it would die with me. The tape clicked. Paused. Then hissed again. I started hearing the voices after your grandma passed. Not all at once. Just, things I thought were dreams. But they got louder. Smarter. And then they showed me. Showed me the place beneath the floor. He sounded scared. Not the kind of scared I'd ever known in him. Something brittle. Hollow. It's not just the house, Tom. It's what the house stands on. The thing beneath it. And the more you stay, the more it remembers you. It wants to keep you. Click. Silence. I rewound it, thinking I'd imagined it. Pressed play again. This time, the tape didn't start with his voice. It started with a sound. Something low. Wet. Rhythmic. Like breathing filtered through water. Then, Tom. Not his voice. Not quite. Slower. Off-key. Like something learning to speak through his mouth. I hit stop. Ejected the tape. My hands were shaking. I stared at the machine like it might bite. Then I looked up, and froze. The hallway light was on. I hadn't turned it on. And the door at the end? The one to his room? It was open. I stood. Walked toward it with heavy legs. Inside, everything was dark. But I could see the bed. Something was sitting on it. Tall. Still. Facing the door. I stepped closer. The shape didn't move. But as I reached the edge of the threshold, a cold draft moved past me. And in my ear, no louder than a breath. Play the next one. I didn't sleep that night. Not even in the chair. I sat at the kitchen table with the rest of the tapes laid out in front of me like a hand of cards I didn't know how to play. Every few minutes, I'd glance toward the hallway, expecting to see that shape again, his shape, just standing there, half in shadow. But nothing came. The silence grew. And I started to realize something I hadn't before. The house wasn't watching me. It was listening. Just after 3 a.m., I played the second tape. This one started differently. No greeting. No testing. Just his voice, already shaking. I never meant to hurt her. I just wanted her to stay. The breath that followed wasn't natural. It rattled through the speaker like wind through broken blinds. She started forgetting things. First little things. Then, me. She didn't know who I was by the end. And when she died, I didn't let her go. My hand went cold. I pressed pause. I remembered Grandma's funeral. He wouldn't let them cremate her. Wouldn't let them put her in the family plot. Said she wanted something closer. But no one ever told me where she was actually buried. I hit play again. I kept a piece. Something small. I buried it beneath the cellar. I know how that sounds, Tom. But she came back. She did. Only, it wasn't her. The tape went silent again. Then came the sound. Like the first one, but worse. Wetter. Hungrier. And this time, beneath it, something else. A second voice. Not his. Feminine. But wrong. Too slow. Too flat. It said just one thing. Come see me. I turned off the player. And the lights flickered. All of them. A pulse through the house, like the walls had exhaled. Then. A knock. Not at the front door. Not at the guest room. Beneath me. I walked to the floor vent in the hallway. Bent down. Listened. Nothing. But the metal grate was warm to the touch. And somewhere far below, in the darkness beneath the floorboards, I heard it. The faint, scraping sound of nails. By sunrise, I couldn't pretend anymore. I knew I wouldn't make it to the end of the tapes without something, noticing. Something already had. The house didn't feel like it was creaking anymore. It felt like it was breathing. The windows stayed fogged, even though it wasn't cold outside. The floorboards were warm where they'd always been cold. And every mirror in the house, every single one, was starting to blur. Not with steam. Not dust. With movement. Faint. Behind the glass. Like something was trying to find the right shape. I played the third tape. No intro. Just a voice not meant for tape at all. My grandfather's, but distant now. Distracted. Tired. Tom. I think she hears the tapes. I think she follows the sound. Every time I listen, she gets closer. His voice dropped. So quiet I had to hold the speaker up to my ear. You shouldn't have stayed. I left this for you in case I couldn't hold her anymore. But you shouldn't listen to the rest. And then, a whisper. Not from him. Not even on the tape, it felt like. But behind me. In the room. Keep going, Tommy. I turned. No one there. Only the kitchen window. And in the faint reflection. A woman. Standing just beyond the frame. Head tilted. Hair long. Face blurred. As if the glass couldn't hold the shape. I stepped away. Tripped over the chair. The tape kept playing. She said things, Tom. Things no one could have known. Things from your childhood. Your drawings. Your hiding spots. She knew the name of the girl you kissed behind the church when you were 8. She remembered your nightmares. Silence. Then. But it wasn't her voice. I hit stop. Ejected the tape. I didn't put in the next one. Not yet. I went to the bathroom to splash cold water on my face. And when I looked in the mirror, I saw something carved into the fogged glass. Keep going. Below it. A shape. Oval. Like an eye. Or an open mouth. Back in the hallway, the air was thicker. Each step toward the den felt like moving underwater. I pressed play on the 4th tape, almost by instinct now. I didn't want to hear it. But she wanted me to. And in the background, beneath my grandfather's shaking voice, I heard it. A second voice, growing stronger. He kept me hungry. The house isn't just haunted. It's remembering. And the more I listen, the clearer it becomes. Not just the voice on the tapes, hers. The house itself. Every door that closes on its own. Every flicker of the lights. Every stretch of silence too long to be natural. It's all part of her voice now. I played the 5th tape just before sunset. My hand shook as I pressed play. The light through the windows turned golden and sharp, cutting across the walls like blades. His voice was weaker now. Dry. Tired. Afraid. I don't know what she is anymore. But it's not Margaret. It looks like her. Sounds like her. But it doesn't feel like her. I thought I could hold her here. Thought if I gave her a place, a name, a body, she'd stay soft. But she's changing. Then silence. Then a sound that made my stomach turn. A wet knock. Like something hitting wood with soft muscle. Followed by a dragging sound. Followed by her voice, clearer than ever. Tommy. He never fed me enough. But you're young. I hit stop. But the dragging didn't stop. It was still happening. In the house. From the back hall. Where the cellar door is. I ran. Threw open the curtain. The door stood wide open. The stairs were lit from below. And the smell, rotting cedar and old perfume, curled around me like breath. I should have left. I should have gotten in my car and never looked back. But I didn't. Because I understood something then. She wasn't calling me down there. She was already coming up. I stepped down. Each stair cried beneath me. At the bottom, the single bulb above the dirt floor was swinging gently. The box I'd opened earlier was still there. But the tapes were gone. Replaced with something else. Cloth. Yellowed. Wrapped around something heavy. I pulled it free. Unwrapped it slowly. And inside was a jawbone. Not clean. Not buried long. Still damp. I dropped it. And from behind me, she whispered. He only kept part of me. I want the rest. I ran. Up the stairs. Out of the house. Onto the porch. But the world outside looked different now. Not wrong. Not broken. Just unreal. Too still. Like a photograph waiting to be overexposed. I turned back once. She stood at the front window. Watching. Not angry. Expectant. I left that night. I didn't go home. I've stayed in motels ever since. Don't sleep much. Don't look in mirrors. But the last time I did, I saw something. In the background. In the dark behind me. A figure. Tall. Still. And just before I blinked, she smiled.